Hi there. Welcome to this workshop on self-led care for breast cancer survivors. My name is Amy Inzero, and this workshop is for those who have been diagnosed with any stage of breast cancer, who may have just been diagnosed or are within treatment, or for those who are in survivorship in the years following their diagnosis. This workshop may also be helpful for anyone who has a family history of breast cancer and for those who feel that they are at greater risk for developing breast cancer. The goal of this workshop is to provide some ideas and some complementary treatments to help those who are concerned about breast cancer to develop a greater sense of control and empowerment and a greater connection to self with a capital S to help manage the anxiety and some of the mental health concerns that come with this diagnosis, as well as all of the aspects of body, mind, and spirit. And so before I get into sharing some information with you today, I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey and how I came to developing and presenting this workshop today. About 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism in my lungs. It's a series of blood clots that can be potentially life-threatening. My pulmonary embolism was caused by being on a specific type of birth control pill, and I was treated for that pulmonary embolism and recovered fully from that within a few months. About 7 years after my pulmonary embolism, I was diagnosed with stage 1 invasive estrogen-positive breast cancer. I believe that the pulmonary embolism and the breast cancer were related or connected in the sense that they both really had something to do with my hormones and an imbalance in my body. When I was diagnosed with the breast cancer, I had to choose my course of treatment for the breast cancer, and this was the most challenging decision of my entire life. Because I had had the pulmonary embolism that was caused by being on medication, birth control pills, I had become very skeptical of pharmaceuticals and Western medicine. But at the same time, I knew that I had to take steps to keep my breast cancer from metastasizing or recurring. And so I dug really deep and I did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people. And in the end, based on my own personal circumstances, I chose to have a lumpectomy and radiation, and I chose some complementary treatments that I believe have helped to keep me cancer-free for the last 5 years. My goal today is not to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. I am not here to recommend any specific treatments for anyone. I very strongly believe that everyone's on their own journey and everyone needs to choose the path that's right for them, whether it be Western medicine, Eastern medicine, complementary treatments, alternative treatments. The idea here is just to present you with some ideas of what I've learned on my journey, and then you can go off and do your own searching and come up with a life plan that works for you. With my breast cancer diagnosis, I knew that I also needed to address the anxiety that came with having had a pulmonary embolism diagnosis and a breast cancer diagnosis before the age of 50. And so that's when I turned to IFS, Internal Family Systems Therapy, to develop a greater connection and understanding of true self, my heart center, and the different parts of me, such as anxiety, that potentially could have gotten in the way of me pursuing some of these complementary treatments. I felt with my anxiety that I could potentially become paralyzed against doing what was best for my body and my mind and my spirit. So the complementary treatments are all working in conjunction with each other to help manage those systems, those anxious parts, as well as to address physical concerns of my body and spirit and mind as well. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So as I've alluded to, the objective for today is to use qualities of self-leadership, finding that connection to your soul, your spirit, your heart center, whatever you want to call it, to help manage other parts of yourself that come up, such as anxiety, and to use those qualities in conjunction with complementary and alternative medicine to help manage the challenges and emotions that come with a breast cancer diagnosis. And so I've listed here, you can see in the graphic and in the list, a variety of complementary and alternative medical treatments. The difference between a complementary treatment and an alternative treatment is that a complementary treatment complements Western medicine. So you're using both. You can see that many of the ideas and the treatments listed in the graphic are based on Eastern medicine. You're using these as complementary treatments if you choose to use both the Western medical model and some of these, which is the route that I took, the lumpectomy, the radiation, going to Yale. That was seeking out Western medicine and using that for my well-being. But I've also incorporated these into my treatment plan to help me stay healthy. If you were to choose only these options and only Eastern medicine with a disregard for Western medicine, that's considered an alternative medical treatment. Again, your journey, your choice. I'm just here to present the information. And so today, we're going to take a look at some of the complementary treatments that are used most for breast cancer. I've starred the ones in the list that we're going to be focusing on today, beginning with natural products to help foster a sense of health in the body. We'll be working on some deep breathing within a yoga practice, and we'll be ending the workshop today with a meditation that will include some guided imagery. We'll also be touching just a little bit on special diets that can help to enhance the health of your body. I have used many of the complementary treatments specific to breast cancer listed in the top 10, but know that There are many, many in the graphic that I have also used that are not listed in the top 10 list, such as Ayurveda and chiropractic manipulation, massage, vitamins and supplements and herbal products and naturopathy. So there is a wide variety of options here. And for me, they have been extremely effective and extremely helpful in managing all aspects, again, of body, mind, and spirit. As I mentioned before, anxiety was an area that I really needed to attend to after my breast cancer diagnosis, as many of you may be able to relate to. There are several mental health concerns that come up with any cancer diagnosis. It's difficult to get consistent, accurate numbers on the number of people who suffer from these mental health concerns, because the research that they do is very dependent upon the population that they collect their data from, the types of breast cancer that those people are experiencing, their mental health history prior to being diagnosed, and even in the way that they collect their data can skew the results from study to study. So these numbers are, in general, what I found through the research. It's the best estimate of the percentages of people who suffer these mental health concerns with a breast cancer diagnosis. 25 to 50% experience anxiety. And this isn't just with the diagnosis. Any of these can continue on after the diagnosis, through treatment, and into your subsequent years of survivorship. So if you are suffering any of these mental health concerns, I think that what I'd like to say mostly is know that you're not alone, and that it is very, very common. Depression, 10 to 30%, PTSD, 25%, post-traumatic stress disorder, which we don't always realize occurs with serious disease diagnosis, but it's definitely something that's very real. And so Tanya Peterson of healthyplace.com talks about anxiety coming from feeling a lack of control over a situation. It can cause a powerless feeling in the face of fears and worries. My favorite part of her quote down there, though, is she says, while there are certain things we will never have control over, we can absolutely take measures to increase our sense of control and thus decrease our anxiety. And so that's the idea today, to present a few ideas of where I am in my own thinking right now, to hopefully give people a sense of a little bit more control over body, mind, and spirit, and to help manage that very overwhelming anxiety that can occur. I want you to take a minute here to think about your true self. In yoga, we call it Atman, the individual spirit, your soul, your true self, your consciousness, your essence. What are some words that come to mind when you think about that true self, your soul? Take a minute to jot down the first words that come to mind, or talk to somebody nearby, or just think about it in your head. What words resonate with you when you think about that connection to your own individual spirit? And so Richard Schwartz is the developer of IFS, Internal Family Systems. And what he has proposed is that there are parts of ourselves that we experience on a daily basis. There are parts of us that are anxious. There are parts of us that are angry. There are parts of us that are resentful or feel guilt or shame or sadness. But what he stresses is that those thoughts and feelings are not who we truly are. If you think about it, they're just parts of ourselves. And so the idea is to connect and discover and just find a little more deeply that true self within, which is infinite and eternal, unlike the parts of ourselves. And that true space within, that heart center, the more we connect with it, it can help to support those parts of ourselves that we can get hijacked by sometimes, and that can keep us from pursuing some of these complementary treatments. Because sometimes the anxiety can paralyze us so much that we don't know what to do or where to go. And we just become frozen with fear. And so he came up with the 8 C's of self-leadership to help us understand heart center and true self. And connecting to these qualities will help us to become a little bit more centered. He begins with curiosity, connection, compassion, creativity, confidence, calm, clarity, and courage. The idea today is to begin to explore some of these characteristics of true self through taking care of the body, mind, and spirit, so that we can manage the anxiety and the depression and the stress and take care of ourselves in the best way we can. Check your list. Did some of the words that resonated with you correlate to these concepts and ideas? If so, great. If not, let's start to think about these and explore them a little bit more. Here's another graphic to show the idea of self-leadership. Think of the top of the ocean, those choppy waves as our parts. Anxiety, depression, stress, anger, guilt, resentment, sadness. Those are the waves that make our lives choppy, right? And they affect our body and our mind and our spirit. The idea is to go deeper. Go down to the bottom of the ocean where it's calm and access those 8 characteristics of self. Go to the bottom, go deep within, and that's where you'll find your peace. And when you find that peace, you'll be in a place where you can think a little bit more clearly and access the tools and the treatments that help you to live a healthier and happier life. So I'd like to talk a little bit now about curiosity and the body. Curiosity is one of the qualities of self-leadership. And know that the qualities of self-leadership are obviously fluid. So we'll be talking about curiosity and the body. But of course, you can become curious about the mind, and you can become curious about the spirit. And so these qualities of connecting to self and self-leadership are fluid, and should and can be used throughout your life with regards to body, mind, and spirit. But today we'll be talking about curiosity and the body. And Vicki B. Smith says it's the first step in making any changes. We need to be able to turn towards ourselves and inquire within to see what we're actually doing before we can make changes to get to where we want to be. So in thinking about regaining that sense of empowerment, that sense of control, we need to become curious about lots of things in order to start making changes and feel a little bit less anxious and a little bit more empowered. And we'll be talking today about detoxing your body so that you're creating a healthy environment where cancer is not being invited to grow, basically. And the best way to do that is to reduce your toxic load and increase nutrient-rich food. It's really, really important to understand that 80% of all breast cancers are estrogen positive. That means, in really simplistic terms, from what I understand, is that these types of cancers feed on estrogen. You can see in the picture these estrogen receptors. Estrogen hormones, progesterone hormones, and growth factors attach to these receptors, and they fuel cell division and growth. And so certain estrogens really feed that cancer and encourage that cancer to divide and grow. That's important to understand as we go through talking about chemicals and toxins in the environment and in products that we use. For this reason, it's important to get curious about products and foods that disrupt hormones and have chemicals that mimic these estrogens that cancer cells can attach to. Let's talk a little bit about toxic burdens. The average woman is exposed to 168 toxic chemicals a day. That's the average woman who's not informed, who doesn't understand what's in the products that she uses. That's just the average woman. Babies are born with 200 industrial chemicals and pollutants in umbilical cord blood. It's really important to understand here that 60% of what you put on your body is absorbed into your bloodstream and your system. So not only is it what you're ingesting and taking in through the mouth, but it's also through the skin and what you're putting on your body. Think of the number of products that you're putting on your body in the morning and throughout the day. We'll talk a little bit about those today and what you can do to be a little bit more conscious about what you're ingesting and what you're putting on your body so that you can keep, again, that environment within from being an inviting place for cancer cells to grow. Some of the toxic chemicals that have been most common are triclosan, aluminum, fragrance, and propylene glycol. Triclosan actually was just banned in the United States in 2016. However, it takes a while for manufacturers to have to eliminate that chemical from their product. So because it was only 4 years ago, there is a good chance that you may have products that still contain triclosan. Triclosan is an antibacterial agent. It's often found in toothpaste, particularly Colgate, I believe, had triclosan in it. And so if you have some old tubes of toothpaste laying around, you may check the label and see if that chemical is still in it. I also believe that Dial hand soap was one that had triclosan in it, and likely other hand soaps and possibly hand sanitizers because it's an antibacterial agent. This is one of those chemicals that is an endocrine disruptor. That means it can mimic estrogens in your body and disrupt your endocrine system, your thyroid, and different other various parts of your endocrine system. Aluminum is often found in deodorant, and although the research is inconclusive on deodorant causing breast cancer, aluminum can often block the ducts within your underarms, and so it causes an unhealthy environment within your body. And so it's best to avoid aluminum in your deodorants if you can, and we'll talk a little bit later about some different options that you can explore instead. Fragrance is another endocrine disruptor, and fragrance is found in lots and lots of products. Manufacturers aren't required by the FDA to list fragrance ingredients, and so lots of manufacturers can hide this particular chemical. Sometimes it's listed as parfum, Parfum, and you need to really be on the lookout for it within your soaps, your conditioners, your shampoos. Essential oils are so much better. People who are creating natural products now are using more of the essential oils than the fragrance. But this is another huge hormone disruptor. Propylene glycol is a petrochemical. That means it's a byproduct of oil refinement. It's widely known as a toxic substance, and it's used in antifreeze, it's used in paints, and it's used in skincare, hair care, and fragrances. I have a tube of hair serum, straightening serum, that has propylene glycol in it. I'm not proud of it. I do use it once in a while, but it's a reminder also that you're striving for 80% here, 80% clean. There are some products that I just can't give up. And I have come to accept that I am not ever, it's not realistic for me to become 100% clean and non-toxic. So I read my labels, I become curious, and I strive for 80%, knowing that I may have one product that has propylene glycol in it. And it's not great, but if the other products I'm using throughout the day don't have propylene glycol, then I'm better than I was 10 years ago, for sure. It's a journey. I'm getting rid of products a little bit at a time. Don't think you need to ditch everything at once. I'm here to give you permission to strive for 80%. I've included here some links. This is a link to a pocket guide to harmful ingredients developed by a company called Pure Haven Essentials. You can print this out and fold it up and keep it in your purse when you go grocery shopping. This gives a list of several of the harmful ingredients that you can find in different products. The chemicals that have a star next to them are the chemicals that are specifically endocrine disruptors. Again, remembering 80% of breast cancers are estrogen positive. You want to avoid these endocrine disruptors as best you can to keep those cancer cells from having something to basically feed on. So this gives some good information on the chemicals and why they are harmful to your system. EWG, the Environmental Working Group, which is a good resource for researching products and the amount of chemicals they have in them. They have the Dirty Dozen endocrine disruptors. And so this one is a little bit more easy to read than the pocket guide, but this goes through, again, the top 12 endocrine disruptors and how to avoid them. And so you can take a look at that. Let's talk a little bit about the kitchen. I want you to think about where the toxins might be in your kitchen. Have you thought about toxins being in your kitchen? Take a minute to jot down or talk to someone nearby about the toxins that you might find in your kitchen. So let's take a look and see how many you came up with. One of the first kitchen toxins are canned foods and plastic containers. Canned foods is one of the largest exposures to the toxic chemical BPA. I'm embarrassed to say also that I was a huge plastic container user, and I even microwaved my food in plastic containers and plastic bags. I had no knowledge of the danger of doing this. These are products that contain chemicals that are endocrine disruptors. And some of the estrogens that are released through these products are some of the strongest estrogens that you can have in your body. In other words, when cancer cells latch onto these receptors, they don't let go. And so as best you can, if you can switch over to glass containers, it's a huge step in the right direction to help preventing another breast cancer recurrence or a metastasis. These chemicals in general, the overall umbrella, are called phthalates. And phthalates can escape fairly easily from the plastic containers because they're not chemically bonded to the plastic. And so it's said that another phthalate called DEHP can interfere with testosterone during development, and low dose exposure can lead to male reproductive disorders, thyroid dysfunction, and subtle behavioral changes. So not just for females with breast cancer, we know males can develop breast cancer as well, but also for the male reproductive system, these estrogen mimickers are very harmful to our bodies, and so we avoid them as best we can. Again, 80%. Non-stick pans. Non-stick cookware is made using PFOA, a chemical linked to cancer and other health issues. Your best bet is stainless steel, cast iron, enameled pots. Those nonstick Teflon frying pans are really coated with cancer-causing agents that could possibly keep your body from being the healthiest it can be. Microwave popcorn. Those bags are also lined with PFOAs, and as well as pizza boxes, French fry cups, and it's another possible carcinogen that you want to stay away from as best you can. Air-popped popcorn is great. Popping your popcorn in a pan on the stove is fabulous. Staying away from the microwave popcorn and Pop Secret is probably not the best for you. Oh, another huge one. Nitrates in processed meats. Thinking about sausages, bacon, hot dogs, deli meats. These nitrates have been bestowed the highest warning level possible. The IARC has labeled it carcinogenic to humans. It's along the same line as something like arsenic. Like that's what they compared it to. These nitrates are extremely dangerous for our bodies. In the UK, in a study of 35,372 women, those consuming the most processed meat exhibited 64% more breast cancer than those who ate none of the hot dogs and deli slices. We'll talk a little bit more about healthy eating and the types of foods that help create a healthier environment in your body. But if you're going to start in one place and make one little change to your diet, this may be the place to do it. Water. Something as simple as water can be potentially toxic. Best to have a water filter and to drink filtered water and avoid the chemicals that you can potentially find in your water source. You want to remove contaminants such as arsenic and lead. Avoid buying plastic water bottles and drinking from plastic water bottles. Try to buy stainless steel. I love my Yeti, even though it has a plastic lid, it's stainless steel. Making these conscious decisions to avoid these products, it adds up And the idea is to just tip the scales for the better so that you're ingesting less chemicals. I'm sure that when you were thinking about toxins in your kitchen, many of you came up with cleaning products. Cleaning products have many, many toxins in them. I'm going to say now, though, there is a range of clean. So bleach is probably at the farthest end of not clean and most dangerous to your body. Again, bleach contains chemicals that act as the strongest estrogens in your body for cancer to feed off of. And so what I've done here is linked some other options for, some other options for household cleansers. You'll hear me mention Pure Haven Essentials today. Pure Haven is probably one of the cleanest products that you can purchase. There are no preservatives. They're completely 100% toxin-free. Norwex is a new company I just discovered. They create these cloths, the EnviroCloth, the window cloth, the dusting mitt, and their claim is that you don't need to use any cleaners with these cloths. And they have an antibacterial surface to them that keeps the cloth clean from absorbing the bacteria. However, I cannot vouch for if these cloths will clean COVID. I know that I have been using more toxic cleaners recently because of that. But again, 80%, if you can clean your windows with a cloth like this instead of Windex, there's probably not a lot of COVID on your window. So choosing where you need to use those stronger cleaners to kill germs if you're worried about diseases, but then choosing to maybe dust with a dusting mitt and not going with the strong chemicals. These Bonami and Aspen 7th generation, the Honest Company, they're cleaner than a Windex or a bleach or a Clorox or a Lysol. They are definitely cleaner. They are not 100% clean. So you need to make that decision based on your lifestyle and a little bit at a time, little changes at a time. We're not striving for 100% here. So going back to our kitchen toxins, the last kitchen toxin that you may have in your kitchens is non-organic fruits and veggies. Organic fruits and veggies can be expensive. I get it, but the chemicals on those non-organic fruits and veggies can be toxic and can be cancer-causing. It's helpful to discriminate between which ones are more laden with pesticides than others. And that's when we turn to the Dirty 12 and the Clean 15. If you're limited in finances and can only spend a certain amount of money, you want to make sure that these Dirty 12, you buy organic. Strawberries, number one fruit laden with chemicals. Now, you may choose to buy local at a local farm. be sure to ask them, especially at this time of year, if they are grown organically or if they are grown sustainably. Sustainably means that they're using the least amount of chemicals that they need to use, which is okay. Based on the research I've done, it's best to buy local as long as you know that they're not using heavy pesticides. It's best to buy local and then, of course, organic. And then you have your Clean 15 down here, which don't necessarily need to be bought organically. While we're talking about food, we talked a little bit about nitrates in meats, and we've talked a little bit about organic fruits and vegetables. Dr. Christy Funk is a doctor who has focused her career now on breast cancer and preventing breast cancer. And she talks about the healthiest diet being a whole food, plant-based diet. She says that these types of foods are so powerful that they'll alter a tumor's microenvironment. Her research is really compelling. And her research says even if you haven't been eating this way for your entire life, making the change now will have a significant impact on your body. These are her favorite 14 foods to eat to beat breast cancer. And I've connected here a link to a worksheet that she has for you to keep track of how much of these foods you're eating. And she also gives you on that worksheet how much you should be eating of these foods to help prevent breast cancer. She gives you the servings that are best. This whole food plant-based diet isn't new. It's very much in conjunction with the practices of Ayurveda that recommends also a whole food plant-based diet. Thinking about making small changes. You don't need to change your entire diet tomorrow. A little bit at a time. I started after my breast cancer diagnosis by becoming a pescatarian. I gave up meat. I ate fish. I continued with my dairy and continued with other foods. And I gradually, over the course of the last 5 years, let a little bit more go at a time. I let go of the fish. I let go of the dairy. And a little bit at a time has helped me to be successful. You need to do what works for you. So I'd like to talk a little bit now about home and personal care products. I want you to take a minute to think about how many personal care products you think the average woman uses in a morning. Not the number of chemicals she's exposed to. We talked a little bit earlier about that. But how many personal care products does the average woman use, or how many personal care products do you use? What do you think that number might be? If you said 12, you are correct. The average woman uses 12 personal care products, and as we learned before, she's exposed to 168 chemicals through those 12 products and through the other toxins she encounters throughout the day. And so I'd like to talk now about some of the toxins that are encountered in these personal care products and about some of the options that you can choose that might be a little bit cleaner. It's important for you to know first that the United States bans 11 chemicals from cosmetic products. 11. I want you to take a guess as to how many chemicals Europe has banned from their cosmetic products? Take a guess. Europe has banned 1,368 chemicals from their cosmetic products. The United States has banned 11. It's really important for you to know, because you need to become curious about what you're putting on your body and what you're putting within your body so that you can create a healthy environment where cancer doesn't choose to grow. These are some of the personal care products that women use on a regular basis: deodorant, soap, toothpaste, shampoo and conditioner, lotions and moisturizers, and cosmetics. Many of us use these on a daily basis, and I know for myself that I didn't think twice about any of these products that I used as I was growing up, and really until I developed the pulmonary embolism and then the breast cancer. I didn't give any thought to what might be in these products. We already talked a little bit about deodorant and the fact that aluminum may block the sweat ducts and cause an unhealthy environment. So let's take a look at some healthier options for deodorant. Understand again that there is a range of clean. I choose to use Native deodorant, which I find very effective. Pure Haven Essentials deodorant is 100% toxin-free. Understand that if you choose some of these deodorants, some of them have baking soda in them, such as Tom's. And baking soda can cause an allergic reaction that will have you scratching your underarms like a crazy monkey, honestly. It is not a fun feeling. So if you find that you have a baking soda allergy, obviously you want to switch out. Baking soda is a clean ingredient, but some people can have that reaction. Tom's also, in some of their deodorants, has propylene glycol, which we talked about earlier as being a toxin. They claim it to be natural, though, because it's derived from a plant, this particular type of propylene glycol. I still think it's chemically derived. Sometimes I wonder if the propylene glycol is what caused the rash under my arms rather than the baking soda. But it's for you to become curious about and discover and choose what works best for you. I have tried many of these, if not all of them. Native is what I've landed on in this moment. Cleaner soaps. We've talked about looking out for fragrances, especially in soaps, and triclosan in soaps and hand sanitizers. This is, again, a time of COVID. We're trying to be as clean as possible. Pure Haven does have a hand sanitizer spray that has been approved by the FDA to be effective against COVID. It is very expensive, I'm not going to lie, but if you're looking for something 100% clean that you can use on surfaces and you can use on your hands that will kill those germs, that is a company that you can look into. Some of these other soaps are also clean, using more of the essential oils than the fragrances. I tend to go for some homemade soaps that I find at craft fairs. I check out the ingredients, or I use the Pure Haven bar soaps. Cleaner toothpastes. Tom's is my toothpaste of choice. There are some other toothpastes here that claim to be as clean, and you want to look out again for the triclosan in the toothpastes that are not clean, And read the labels. If they're warning you against swallowing the toothpaste and that you need to call poison control, then it's probably not a great toothpaste for you. Just using common sense and understanding that there can be some very harmful ingredients that you are ingesting. Cleaner shampoos and conditioners. I have such a hard time with this one. I really struggle because I have dry, frizzy hair, and shampoos and conditioners are tricky. Pure Haven, again, 100% clean. Not my favorite, though, for the health of my hair. I have not tried all of these. I actually use a product called Monat, which I love for the health of my hair, but I cannot say that it's 100% clean. They claim to be natural. Natural's not organic. Natural's not necessarily clean. Again, I'm striving for 80%. Still got to get over the ego piece a little bit and wanting to use what I want to use to make my hair look as best as it can, in my own personal opinion. So try them out, try out different ones, and let me know what you find that works well for you. Cleaner lotions and moisturizers. I was the one who shopped at Bath & Body for all my lotions and didn't think twice about it. Lots of chemicals. In these lotions and moisturizers and in shampoos and conditioners, there are often many phthalates and parabens. You want to avoid those chemicals that start with P. Phthalates is actually PTH, parabens. Those are the chemicals that are endocrine disruptors that many of these lotions, moisturizers, shampoos, and conditioners contain. My go-to is typically coconut oil or sesame oil, and I throw a little bit of essential oil in there. And it works beautifully, and I know that I'm keeping my body safe, knowing that 60% of what I put on my body is absorbed into my system. Finally, cleaner cosmetics. Another tricky one when you're trying to find what looks just right. My go-to is Juice Beauty, which is endorsed by Gwyneth Paltrow. Their products are pretty organic and pretty clean. I have also tried Anika. They are out of Australia and pretty clean as well, but pretty expensive. I have not tried the others, but they have been rated online as being pretty clean. So again, trying out what works for you, putting the ego aside a little bit to maybe go with some cleaner ingredients. It's tricky. The bottom line is access that sense of self and that sense of curiosity, and you'll find a greater sense of center, knowing that you can be in control of what you put into your body and the environment that you foster. Again, if there are warnings on your labels, it's probably not the cleanest, healthiest product for you to use. On this secret label, keep out of reach of children. If swallowed, get medical help or contact the Poison Control Center right away. Warning, if you accidentally swallow more than used for brushing, this is a toothpaste label, get medical help or contact the Poison Control Center immediately. Probably not the best choice if it can't be in your body. So get curious about the labels and foster an environment that keeps those cancer cells from latching on and growing. Friends, we talked a little bit about curiosity and becoming curious about your environment and the products that you're using with your body. I'd like to talk now a little bit about connectedness, compassion, creativity, confidence, and the mind. Again, remembering that these qualities of self-leadership can be also used with the body or with spirit. But I'd like to talk about these in relation to yoga and helping to calm the mind a little bit so that you can connect a little more to spirit. Yoga enhances the body systems related to social connection. In particular, yoga helps to increase vagal tone within your body. And this vagal tone helps to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and helps you to respond to stress in a more effective way by stimulating that vagal nerve. And when that vagal tone is improved and your response to stress is a little bit better, the greater your vagal tone, the greater your perceived sense of connection. So from a physiological perspective, yoga may increase the feelings of bonding because it improves that vagal tone. The synchronized movement through yoga also creates bonding, and just being present and in the moment increases connection. This connection is so important during breast cancer diagnosis and during treatment because it's important for us to feel supported by others. It's important for us to feel peaceful and safe and sense that feeling of belonging and that we're not different from everyone else just because we've been diagnosed with breast cancer. So this connectedness that we can feel through yoga is essential and super important throughout our breast cancer journey. The other self-led quality that you can connect to through yoga is compassion. This is one that I continue to try and practice often, mostly that compassion for myself. The Yoga Sutras, which are the teachings of yoga, teaches that compassion is a natural remedy to thoughts or feelings of hatred or harm. Compassion removes impurity of thoughts that can lead to such actions that unsettle the mind. I know personally that my breast cancer diagnosis definitely led to thoughts within the mind, kind of beating myself up almost about getting it and what did I do wrong and how did I cause this? And it was a lot of self-talk that wasn't helpful and not a lot of self-compassion. And as the graphic says, if your compassion doesn't include yourself, it's incomplete. So we get to practice this compassion on our mats in yoga. We get to find that compassion for ourselves when we can't maybe do a pose in the way that we want or expect ourselves to do it. And we find that compassion for others in the same way. And finally, actually not finally, but next, yoga provides that confidence for us. It's about being body mindful, and it means intentionally refraining from disparaging body talk, and to challenge guilt, shame, and comparison self-talk. Again, whatever journey we're on with that breast cancer diagnosis, some may have a mastectomy and find some of that negative self-talk with body image, and even with the lumpectomy and radiation, and there may be weight gain and other physical changes to our bodies that cause us to have some disparaging self-talk. Yoga helps us to be body mindful and teaches us that we don't need to measure ourselves against others or change our bodies in any way. It helps us to connect right here to that steadiness and centeredness and confidence that we are okay just as we are, no matter what that is. We practice that day in and day out on our mats. And finally, yoga helps us to connect to creativity, which helps us to let go of the distractions of the mind. Being creative helps us to see clearly and find inspiration. I often cue in my yoga classes, and you'll hear it as we move into a yoga practice, to find that creativity in your poses. Everyone doesn't need to do the same thing. Find the creativity and find the pose that works for you. Connect to your sense of inspiration and to your intuition.